AITA for hating my engagement ring? I, 29F, got engaged to my fiancé, 30M, after 2 years of dating and 15 years of knowing each other. He is super sweet, kind, supportive and very family-oriented. His parents love me and my parents love him. There was absolutely no drama in our relationship, until now. I knew that he had been looking to settle down and be married and he knew I was too. We just kind of have always known, even for those 15 years, that this was gonna happen. Hard to fight the gut feeling. Because we were talking so much about getting married, he wanted to take me engagement ring browsing so that he could see what styles I liked and didn't like. When we went, I suggested we go to a outlet jewelry shop cause I know he wouldn't want to spend a fortune on it and I didn't want anything super expensive or extravagant either. The one and only rule I told him was that I only wanted traditional diamonds. No offense to those who like more colorful rings, but I prefer to be a little more traditional. I put on many rings that all were very similar, just one simple diamond and a strap. I tried to try on ones that were no more than $1,000. I thought that was generally reasonable. Months later he proposes and I start to cry from the joy, and after I say yes he opens the box. And in the box was a small greenish-brownish color diamond with extremely tiny traditional diamonds around it. I was disappointed, but put on a big fake smile and tried to erase it from my mind so I could let the excitement of the moment continue. After about maybe 30 minutes, I went ahead and asked about the ring. I asked what kind of diamond it was and he said it was called a moss diamond and he chose it for me because turquoise was my favorite color and it was the closest he could find. I wanted to say, what about my one rule of traditional diamond only? But I also didn't want to be ungrateful, so I didn't ask. I asked him if he had gotten it at the outlet shop we went to and he said he had gotten it off Etsy. My MOH ladder told me that Etsy made good quality jewelry, so that perked me up a bit. I decided to just kind of let it be and accept the ring and learn to love and attach memories to it. Getting to the drama. This whole process has kind of made me realize how cheap he is. I don't mind when someone knows how to stretch a dollar, but to me there's a difference between frugal and cheap. When I look back at all our dates, his gifts, and everything, it kind of clicked in me that all of them had either been cheap or a free gift from a friend that he decided to give to me. The gifts he has given to me during our relationship were just because he found them for free or someone sold it for an extremely cheap price. For one of my birthdays he ended up getting us tickets to this massive local ball and getting us ballroom dancing classes before the ball started. I showed no interest in ballroom dancing, but I thought it was a fun idea to go and we had a generally good time. I thanked him and asked him how he found out about this. He told me originally his friend was going to go with his girlfriend, but couldn't make it, so they gave us the tickets. So basically the ball, our food, our drinks, our dance lesson and even my corsage was all free. And there's more cheap and free stories where that came from. And when I look back at things, whenever we did do something extravagant it was always on my dime. He is not rich, but he is certainly not poor. He makes pretty decent money. The thing that I think made me finally break was our Valentine's Day plans. He had told me he was going to take me to the biggest landmark of our city, which is expensive to just even set foot in, and they had a restaurant inside that was ridiculously expensive. I was amazed and even said, "Are you sure? You know that place is expensive, right?" He said that he knew it was one of my bucket list things to do and said I deserved it. It meant so much to me that he was willing to do this and I was so excited. A few days later I found that there was gonna be a wedding convention in our town. I bought our tickets $15 each plus one for my mom and maid of honor. I told him about it and he said great. It's better to spend our money there than on that restaurant. I was so confused. I told him they weren't on the same day, in fact they were a week apart, and that I already had bought the tickets and he didn't need to buy anything there so he wouldn't have to worry about spending any money at the convention. He said, "No, it's better to save our money, so let's not go to the landmark/restaurant." My mind was blown. I couldn't believe he canceled my dream plans over something that had absolutely nothing to do with the plans. I talked to my MOH about it and she said she has always noticed he was a bit cheap. On to the ring now. I never looked up my ring on Etsy to try to find it or asked for the price cause I thought it was rude to look up or ask. But because of all this craziness I decided to go on Etsy and find my ring. There were surprisingly many moss diamond rings to look through, but I eventually found it. The ring was being sold for $28. Honestly, my heart kinda broke. I started saying stupid dramatic things in my head like, am I only worth $28? I wanna confront him about this, but I might be a AH here for just letting this get to me. Ick. Wibta for confronting him about this? Update. I'll go ahead and answer some of y'all's questions and comments. No, my finger has not turned green yet, surprisingly LOL. Believe me though, I do check once in a while. Here's a bit of info on his financial life and history. He grew up as one of 7 siblings with parents who financially struggled to get by. He definitely grew up learning how to stretch a dollar. Currently, even though I know he can afford a lot more, he rents a cheap studio apartment in a sketchy part of town where when I come to visit, he will come down and walk me from my car to his room for safety. His apartment has basically no decorations outside of old comic book posters. All his furniture and household appliances etc. I can guarantee are all second-hand or bought from Goodwill. He almost never eats out, and when he does it's always a small meal from Jack in the Box where he is willing to spring for a milkshake. In terms of what he does with all his money that he does not spend, I'm not sure. I never asked cause I was thought that it was rude to ask people where they put their money, but now that we're engaged I guess I have every right to ask where it goes to LOL. Here's a bit on my financial life and history. I grew up an only child with parents who owned a small business who never had to struggle for money. We were not rich, but I would call us upper middle class. If I needed something expensive for a project or for school it was easy for my parents to get it. I was not spoiled though. There were plenty of times my parents would tell me no and would only buy expensive things for me if I really needed them. As an adult I make a pretty good living. I did not go to college, so thankfully I'm in no debt. I have a career in the field I always wanted to be in and I'm hoping that soon it will be growing even bigger. I don't think I make more than my fiancé though, I could be wrong. I currently live in an apartment complex in a safe part of town and decorate my apartment nicely. All my decorations though were not expensive. I do eat out probably a little more than I should, but it's not like I go to Cheesecake Factory every day. It's more like I'll get Chick-fil-A or Chipotle or get a pre-made meal from Target every other day on my way to work. Here's some more important info that maybe I should have mentioned. For those of you who are saying he's a bad or terrible guy, he's really not. He's literally one of the sweetest guys you will ever meet and honestly. He's pretty innocent. He is lightly on the spectrum and doesn't always know how to process emotion or understand why what he said was inappropriate. He also can't always take a hint and doesn't always know whether someone is joking around or being serious. Oftentimes when I make a joke, I make it obvious so he understands. Because of his being on the spectrum, he has a therapist that he has been going to ever since he was a kid. He apparently used to see her every month, but now as an adult he goes once or twice a year. My MOH had a fantastic idea and said I should book an appointment with my fiancé and his therapist to talk about this. I told my fiancé that it might be a great idea to talk about our relationship with her so we can learn how best to communicate as a future married couple. He said that was a great idea and we are gonna book an appointment soon. Update 2. Thank you to all of y'all for helping me realize I'm not crazy for feeling this way. I was always told to suck it up and be thankful for what life gives you, so to hear all of y'all's explanations of why what I'm feeling is valid made me more confident to take action about this. I know a lot of y'all said to dump him, but I wanted to give him a chance. I wanted to make sure I went about this the best way I could and if any of y'all disagree about my method but I talked to his mom about it. Her and I are getting really close. She is so sweet to me and has even drove to pick me up and help me when I was having car trouble. I even hung out with her without my fiancé once. She let me borrow a jacket recently when I was stupid enough to forget one and so I used giving back the jacket as an excuse to come visit and talk. I dropped off the jacket and she asked if I wanted to come in a visit and of course I said yes. We talked for about an hour and finally I had the guts to talk about it. I told her I felt like a piece of garbage for hating the Mosagot ring and asked her whether she thinks I'm valid in me feelings or not. This woman got passionate. She immediately said that I was very in the right and that when he showed her and his sister the ring, they apparently said, "Why did you choose this stone? I don't think this is what OP wants." He apparently said OP loves turquoise so she'll love this. And it's not a stone, it's a diamond. His mom said she knew he was wrong. She even went on this passionate talk about why people traditionally choose diamonds over any other stone and jewel for engagement rings. She told me that people choose diamonds because they are the strongest stone in the world and can cut through and survive anything, so a marriage should be as strong and everlasting as a diamond. I told her that made me want a diamond even more LOL. I asked her how I should talk to him about this. She said to be very honest with him before it's too late and that he loves to hear the meaning behind things. She said if I tell him the things she told me about the meaning behind choosing a diamond he'll understand even more. I was so thankful I talked to her. A couple of days later I went to hang out with him at his place. I was so hesitant to talk about it, but when I finally got up the nerve to talk about it I said I'd like to have a serious conversation with you. And I hope you'll understand where I'm coming from and listen. I told him about how I didn't understand why we went ring browsing in 3 stores only for him to buy a ring that was the opposite of what I said I wanted. I told him about how I hated the ring because to me it symbolized his cheapness and that he didn't listen. I told him I was incredibly disappointed and asked him to explain. He listened very well and let me talk as long as I needed. He told me he had already bought that ring 1 week before we went ring browsing and that he took me out just to find out my ring size and to appease my mind. My flubbers were gassed. I told him that made no sense, and if he had already bought the ring, besides finding my size, all the browsing was completely pointless and wasteful of my time and makes me feel even worse. He didn't understand why it was ridiculous. Because of his type of autism, sometimes I have to explain why people feel the way they do. So I gave him a thorough explanation as to why what he did was insulting, and it clicked, and I could tell he felt like an a-hole. Apologized and said he didn't think about that. He said he even felt really embarrassed for what he got me and felt guilty, but because I never said anything, he thought it was fine. I told him about how I looked up the ring and that I was extra insulted it was $28, and he immediately got defensive and told me that wasn't true and that he paid over $300 for it. I said, then why is a ring that looks exactly like this one on Etsy for $28? He went to his email and found the confirmation of purchase email for when he bought the ring. And he apparently paid $345 for it. I apologized and he said, love, you shouldn't be the one apologizing. I know that I can be very cheap and it's very understandable why you would believe I would pay that much for a ring. I always look for the cheapest option when it comes to everything. When it comes to you, I shouldn't be cheap. I love you and you deserve the best. He immediately stood up and said, let's go find a jewelry shop. I started tearing up a bit cause it meant so much for him to say these words. We then went to a small business, not outlet, jewelry shop and looked at some gorgeous diamond rings. He, very nervously, said, may I give a budget of $1,500? I said, you know what? I don't want a whole new ring. You proposed to me with this, and I don't just want to throw the whole memory away. I would like to just replace the moss stone with a real natural, not lab-made, diamond. I could tell that meant a lot for him to hear, and we told the jeweler to replace the stone with a diamond, and after about a 2-hour wait there it was. The diamond was $700, so in the end he basically spent $1,045 on my ring. My beautiful diamond ring. I probably gave the biggest smile in the world, and when I put it on I gave him a big hug and said, thank you so much, love. You've made one of my dreams come true. He got teary-eyed, and this moment felt even more wonderful than when he proposed. It all felt real. I really felt like I was truly engaged and that he had taken a huge step when it comes to his cheap problem. It was definitely my favorite moment of our whole relationship. I later talked to him about getting financial counseling so that we could learn how to best communicate financially as a couple and how it might help him with his extreme frugalness. He agreed, and we have already set up an appointment to talk with a financial counselor who his sister recommended. We will be getting married in the fall. In a way, I'm thankful for this experience. I feel like this is one of those beautiful situations where good came from bad. Thank you to all of you who told me to be honest with him. I feel like our relationship has just grown so much from this, and I love him even more than before. I still have the moss agate stone and plan to make some kind of jewelry out of it, but for now, I cannot stop staring at my new diamond, and every time I see it I get giddy.